Today on episode 65, I chat with my friend and colleague, David Lamotte. In this episode, David and I talk about his new book, but also, and more importantly, about chickens, parenting, and how humbling it can be standing next to a rock star. If this is your first time meeting David, be prepared to meet a genuinely good human being who is making a difference in the world and encouraging the rest of us to do the same. Please keep in mind that we recorded this way back in September, which in world event years is a lifetime. Thanks for being here. Grab a beverage, pull up a chair, and enjoy listening to my conversation with David Lamotte. My name is Bruce Reyes-Chow, and this is BRC and Friends. Each episode, my co-host and I chat with activists, artists, academics, and adventurers to discuss politics, faith, pop culture, technology, and as you will discover, pretty much everything that pops into our heads. This is basically an excuse for us to hang out with friends and colleagues and riff about things that matter. Welcome to BRC and Friends. Today, I'm really excited. Friend and colleague David Lamotte is joining me for a chat about all kinds of things, about his new book, but also about life, and we're going to get to a lot of different things. So welcome to BRC and Friends. Again, if it's first time listening, my name is Bruce. I am the main host here, and I'm in San Jose, California. I use he, him pronouns, and I kind of make my way through the world writing and pastoring and doing this. So I'm glad you all have joined us today. You're gonna. I've been looking so forward to this conversation with David, who I've known for a long time now. David, would love if you can introduce yourself to folks.
Thanks, Bruce. It's really good to see you. And yes, I'm David Lamotte. I live in the mountains of western North Carolina in a town of about 9,000 people called Black Mountain. And ironically, there are lots of white folks here, but that's where I live with my wife and my kid and a little dog and 6 chickens. And I use he, him pronouns.
6 chickens. I want to get chickens, but my wife is mean and probably wise. There are a lot of things that, well, we just got back from Australia and I desperately wanted to bring a kangaroo back, but Robin's like, I think we can't do that. I'm like, oh.
Yeah. Man, practical people are just hard. I'm married to one of those too. But yeah, I love the chickens. They're not, don't go into it thinking it's a good investment.
I know.
It's not going to save you money on eggs, but they're really sweet. I just like them. And I have to say the eggs are much higher quality than anything I could buy at the grocery store. So,
well, it's so interesting when you travel to places that the food industry is different and how much like eggs look and taste different.
Yeah,
and
totally
better.
true. Totally true.
Yeah.
In Australia, yeah, absolutely.
It's wild. I have some friends. I have a friend actually who is apparently doing a live Instagram today, whenever we're recording this, with a bunch of chicken people, and they're all getting on and to talk about their chickens. And she says it's super ridiculous, but they love it. And I think chickens are kind of one of those things where it's like, that seems like such a great idea. And then you get into it and it's like, oh, it's like a lot of work and you're not saving money. Yeah, you're probably losing money.
I gotta say though, once you get it ramped up, it's really not all that much work. And we've had them for like 8 years. We're pretty hardcore now. So
do you get attached? Like because how long do chickens live? And how long are they? I don't want to say useful, but like how long are they laying?
Productive.
And productive, yes.
Is a good clinical term.
How does I would just be sad all the time.
Yeah, so they do like sort of 4 or 5 years is how ours tend to run. People say 3.
That's a long time.
But actually I saw a news story the other day that somebody had a 20-year-old chicken. So wow. But they definitely only lay for about 3 years. So our particular flock is slowing down a little bit, but we're going to have them forever. And, we have them till they get old and die. And then we bury them in the yard and get new ones. And they're kind of sweet. I'll tell you an interesting thing about my experience of chicken farming is that we could go about.
I know exactly. We will get to the book
all day.
Maybe you should join my friend in their chicken conversation.
But did I get on the wrong podcast? Sorry.
Yeah, it could be.
Anyway, so when we first got chickens, we got a broad variety of chickens, right? And they all look different and they lay different color eggs. And it's pretty cool. You get a bowl full of eggs and they're all different colors. It's just very nice. But our most recent ones, we decided we'd be all practical. And Mason, my kid, is the chicken farmer in the family and makes the big decisions. So this time we decided we would be practical and get good layers. And we just got 6 that look alike. And the problem is you can't name them and like get to know them. And like, unless you want to put little rings on their feet, I suppose there are differences, but they're super subtle. Right. So I'm less attached to this flock than any flock we've ever had. We've had several flocks, but these don't all have names and personalities that I discern as easily. Because for the earlier chickens, for real, they have personalities, and you get some of them are happy to sit on your lap and cuddle, and some of them are a little tougher on the other ones, and some are dominant, some are submissive. You see all kinds of things, but these guys, these ladies, I should say, are all the same. So to me,
that's awesome. Well, welcome to the episode of What the Cluck, my new podcast on chickens. Apparently, that's where we're headed. I hear you also write books and you do music and all kinds of things.
I do some stuff.
You do some stuff. Yeah. I mean, I think we have. Who knew that we would kind of be in this kind of kindred space of just doing lots of different things. I mean, we should talk about that at some point. But you have a new book that has just kind of come out. You are changing the world, whether you like it or not.
Slightly cheeky.
But when I saw the title, and full disclaimer, Dave and I are part of the same publishing group, Chalice Press, who we love, and just great place. Go to their site and buy all their books. I was like, that's very much a David Lamotte title. Like, it felt like genuine to who you are, and I can tell you why you're amazing later. But tell us about the book. This is not your first one, so. How did this come about? What's the pitch? Small, tell me about the book a little bit.
I'll tell you a little bit about the book. I will say before, as preface, that I listened to your Enneagram podcast, and I had to own my apparent fourness. I've never really gone in there, but authenticity. You just said authentic. That's a really high metric for me and means a lot. So thank you for that. So. Yeah, the book is called You Are Changing the World, Whether You Like It or Not. It is a new edition of a book that I published about 7 years ago, maybe. And a lot of things have happened in the last 6 or 7 years that I don't know if you've noticed, Bruce, but a few things went on in the world since then.
What? Seems very normal.
Yeah, exactly. And so I kind of got I wanted to revisit some of the ideas. I wanted to expand on some things. I realized some things I missed in the first edition. And I fell into a conversation with our friend Deb Arca. I think you know Deb.
Yep.
And I was asking her for some tips on some things. I just had set up a meeting with her because I wanted to pick her brain about a couple things. And I did not anticipate the conversation going the way it did, but as we talked about the book, she said, we'd love to have that in our house. And I said, sure, I'll send you a copy. And then I realized, she meant publishing house, right? That's cool. And it hadn't even occurred to me that anybody would be interested in taking a look at this book. But I was really excited about that. And the truth is, I feel like the ideas are at least as relevant now as they were then. Perhaps much more so. And so, I think it's an important set of ideas to lay out there. With all that said, the idea is, the fundamental idea of the book is that as a culture, and I'm speaking to U.S. culture because it's the one I know best. I think this is to some degree true in other cultures, but less so in some. At any rate, in U.S. culture, I think we have an addiction to a narrative of change that is both incorrect and ubiquitous. So the big question is, look, we want to see big changes. How does that happen? Culturally, we have an answer for that question. And I think it's wrong, and I think it's everywhere. And the answer is, what you need is somebody really special to do something really dramatic in a moment of crisis. And that's how you fix the problem, and then you roll the credits. And that's not only the subject of almost all of our entertainment, or the plot line, I should say, of almost all our entertainment, but it's also how we teach history. It's sometimes how we teach theology. That's a whole other conversation. We'll go there. But I think that's wrong. I think when we look at history, I cannot find an example in all of history where one person has affected large-scale change in the absence of a movement.
Right.
What changes things is movements, which by definition means a lot of us doing a little bit each. But we, I think, are so infected by hero narratives that there's several outcomes from this. One, that we feel powerless. I'm not Gandhi. What am I supposed to do? Right. And two, that we outsource the change to other people. We expect other people to fix it for us. And our role in the hero narrative, if we're not the hero, and I don't wake up most days feeling particularly heroic, our role is to clap. Right. And that's a pretty sweet gig. I like that one. So there's something really convenient about the hero narrative. And the thing that I'm arguing in the book is that this is the kind of cultural narrative that we absorb our whole lives to the degree that even if we easily reject it intellectually, we're still infected.
Yeah.
Like racism or any number of other problematic patterns in our society and in humanity. Once you realize there's a problem, that's just step one, right? Like deprogramming yourself from a lifetime of soaking in this is a lifelong excursion. Right. So that's really, it's looking at historical examples of ways that we tell stripped down stories of movements and make them into hero stories in order to make them more palatable for ourselves. And the syllogism we end up with is heroes change things. I'm not a hero, therefore I don't change things.
Right. Oh, and Americans love that kind of independent, like the person who strikes out on their own and does these amazing things. I mean, we just
rugged individualism.
Rugged individualism. I mean, it's like,
right.
That's. I think that's probably the takeaway from this book, and previous, but is that whole idea that we're all peacemakers, we're all, that this lowercase hero thing, right? That we're all part of this, and that there's responsibility and work in that. Like it's
exactly.
It's also not something you just kind of like, I'll do a little bit, but it's actually, no, you're taking your place in the movement seriously.
Yeah. I mean, I would say yes and to the last part, Bruce, right? Because it's also trying to give people an achievable path into the work, true. Right? And I think, yes, we take it very seriously, but actually the way you start anything meaningful is by doing just a little bit, right? Yeah. And you see how that goes, and you get more connected, and maybe you're drawn into doing more. And my sister, Kathy, years ago got kind of interested because she was troubled by the brokenness of our death penalty system. And she started digging more and more into that. And she had a pen pal who was on death row and got to know him fairly well. And she ended up becoming a paralegal. And then at some point said, you know what? I just need to do this. And at age 50, she went to Cornell Law and got a law degree.
Wow.
And now she's a public defender, right? But step one was pen pal and reading some articles, right? Yeah. And so it is, sometimes those lead to bigger things, but even if they don't, it matters to be the pen pal, right? The small things actually do matter.
Right. Well, because I think that, we could fall into that trap that every path we take has to lead to something great.
Right, which it clearly does not.
It doesn't, right. I mean, it's like, maybe I just be okay with this part? Because I think we also have this, narrative of if you're not producing and increasing and, kind of building something, then you're obviously not being successful, whatever that may mean as well, which you're getting at. Yeah.
And I think with our cultural, with our social responsibilities to each other, which is a thing, and we need to acknowledge and take that seriously. I also am very careful when I'm talking to audiences to try to remember that as we talk about this, political work and social work and work that's connectional and beyond ourselves and beyond our front doors, it's also really important. If you're caring for a sick relative, you are part of the movement, right? If you want to live in a world where people take care of their people, and all of your time and energy is taken up with taking care of your people right now, bless you. Thank you for helping to create that world, right? And it's enough. Like I want to just affirm that that's how this is your part of the work of loving the world right now. You know?
Yeah. I think that question about what is enough, and actually taking that question to give ourselves permission to actually answer it, and to be okay with not this kind of super productive, like there's never enough. Because I actually think a lot of places would always just say, would never be able to say there's never enough, and would see it as limiting for me to say actually this is enough. When in fact I think what you're saying is no, actually there's some liberation in claiming that space, and in the end enough.
In the end I think that's for all of us to determine for ourselves, right? But I can't map my demands onto somebody else, right? Like if this, and I believe that there is a toxic ideology sometimes in movement work that martyrdom is really the way to go. This is our best pattern for for saving the world, right? And I think the world may need a few martyrs, but very few. It's often not our most effective strategy for helping, for making things better. Often, if you can stay martyrs in the work, right? We're all gone. And if we all end up completely bitter and broken, like, I'm not sure that made the world a better place.
Yeah. Well, I do think there is this thing where we all like the version of movement making that we like. And if anybody else does it differently, then that's not, I mean, I think that's how do we deeply appreciate, but also examine and hold accountable all the different ways that we engage in this work. It is a difficult task. I mean, because we don't like nuance in the world. I mean, nuance
is hard. It's really hard.
It's just hard. So I'm like,
it's messy.
I get it, but that's not sustainable. Well, so what's been the reception so far? I mean, how has this been going, and how have you been hearing it?
Yeah, it's been pretty beautiful. I've gotten some lovely emails from folks that have written as they're working through the book. They kind of write at different points in the book and say, okay, so here's what I'm thinking about now. And they're like, okay, great. It's really fun to hear from folks who are kind of checking in that way. There's several churches who are starting book groups around the book, and that's fun. I'm just, man, goodness gracious, Bruce, you're a writer. You know what I'm struggling with here, but writing the study guide I think was harder than writing the book, and it's 19 pages long. And it's not out yet. Like I'm getting final reviews on it right now from a few friends before I send it in, but man, that was really hard. So and the book, I should say, is secular. I wanted it to be able to be used in public schools and universities and such, which the first edition was quite a bit. But the study guide is for churches. So it fills back in all the theology that was kind of hard for me to leave out when I was writing it.
That's so funny that my book with Chalice, In Defense of Kindness, was secular.
Yeah, I love that book. I've blurbed that book.
I think we blurbed for each other. This is what we do.
Yes.
But I mean, I think that whole was like trying to get it. Folks wanted to keep going, well, you didn't talk about faith very much. I'm like, well, I did if you know who I am. Right. But yes, I remember getting my first edit version back and like, this is super churchy. I'm like, oh, is it? Huh, interesting. I didn't even like language or phrases. It was fascinating to do that. I'm just curious, like, what's the hate mail? Anything?
Not lately. I haven't been getting so much hate mail yet. We'll see. It'll be fascinating to see. I have, I got some pushback on White Flower, the book, the kids' book that I did years ago.
Sure. That's so good. That's in our...
Thank you. The Klan rally that's met by a clown rally, which is a true story, happened in 2007 in Knoxville, Tennessee. And I put it to rhyme and took a few minor liberties in the telling of it. But basically told this story of what Walter Wink would call a third way response, creative nonviolence. Right. And I just think it's important to tell those stories. When somebody does something really smart and successful, we need to tell that story so we can learn from it. And I did have some people push back on that book, but then Essence magazine listed it as one of 11 books to talk to your kids about racism. And I was like, I'm good.
I'm gonna. Yeah, I think I'm okay.
I'm fine.
I'm not in it for the awards.
If y'all are good, if y'all are good with this, I'm okay. Right? So
well, I was like, I'm fascinated by people who would sit down and be like, oh, this peacemaking and healing stuff is terrible.
Well, actually, let me give credit to the critique. The one that I'm thinking about in particular. Somebody who had been in the work for a long time. Said, look, the drawings of the Klan in that book. These people are scary, and there's nothing funny about this, right? And I'm like, okay, I hear that. Yes, and.
Did you humanize them too? Was that the idea? Like,
what I was trying to do was make fun of them in the drawings, right? Okay. So the drawings make them look rather ridiculous, right? And I was trying to take the power away from their established iconography, right? Right. And so, and I think we did that. And I think actually when I said that back to her, she kind of got it, but she still didn't love it. Yeah. And I get it. This is somebody who's been up against the Klan in very tangible ways. And I've encountered those folks a couple times myself, but I'm generally not in the way that she had.
Right.
And I honor her story, and different lives teach different lessons. So
sure.
Like I get that.
Right.
And I still think I can stand behind this. I think it's a good thing.
Multiple ways of being part of the movement. I mean,
that's right.
So all the links to the book and stuff will be in there. Go get it and all that. But we share some other things in common, like we're parents and all that. How do you? It's one thing for us to be out there talking about all the things we believe in and all that kind of stuff. But how do you begin to pass some of that down? I mean, what's been your experience with? I think our children. I'm not surprised that your child is a musician, right? I mean, folks would be like, it's surrounding him. It's all this. I mean, but all these other things, I don't want to be a how do you do it, but how have you experienced parenting and trying to pass on and live these things with your child?
Oh man, it's hard, as you know. And I'll say I grew up in a house with a pastor for a dad, and a lot of focus on what the world needs. And, the balancing time was a struggle for my dad. And I watched that and I learned some things, and I've fallen right into some of the same traps. And and in other ways I haven't, so I did learn some things, I think. But man, parenting is hard. It is not for the faint of heart. It is serious work. And I'm learning a lot from my kid. We are 2 weeks into high school.
Oh, what?
Yeah, we are 2 weeks into high school.
People listening to this, you're going to be like, that you're lying. That cannot be.
Yeah, it's amazing. So that's where we are. And I don't want to tell Mason's story for Mason, because I really want to honor that. But I'm learning a lot, and I'm grateful. Yeah. And it's hard, and that's, and it's awesome, and I'm not sure what else to say. I guess here's what I'll say. Early this summer, right after school got out, I took Mason on the road with me for 10 days to do gigs as my roadie and merch dude.
Okay.
And it was so much fun. We just had a blast. And one of Mason's responsibilities, Mason will get a learner's permit in a couple of months here, but at this point could not help with the driving. So Mason's job was to DJ.
Okay.
And I love this kid's musical taste.
Good thing.
Broad and deep and wide. It's lovely. Listened to so much good music on that trip, and laughed a lot. And what's fun? I learned on this trip, it's fun to sing Bee Gees songs as a bass. Like, just sing them as low as you can. That's fun. I'm just here to tell you.
So did you ever have a moment? So in our family, so we have three kids, and we're maybe about
my door.
6 years ahead. I don't remember how long. So one is 27 26.
No, they're not.
Yeah. Our oldest is 26. Abby just graduated from college, and then Annie is a junior. But our thing has been, there are times where Ev, our oldest, is always like, you would have never let me listen to this.
Right. Yes.
And I'm like, well, that's true, but now we're old and lazy and tired, so we get to listen to whatever. And like, but there are times where Rob and I look at each other like, this is not music. Like, that's like,
right. Sure.
You get the. Yeah. Did you have any of those moments where like, what is this? Or are you pretty open to whatever?
Well, I'm pretty open to a lot of things, but I'm also, our tastes are pretty aligned. Generally.
Oh yeah.
So
okay.
it's really okay. And that may diverge yet, but Mason's really knowledgeable about, everything from Aretha Franklin to, Mason likes Sinatra more than I do. That's a thing that, is a little bit of a dividing line, but that's where we are. It's not like
if that's the big conflict, right, I think exactly. We're fine.
Yeah. So,
well, that's awesome. Well, that's good. I remember my all of our kids are moving into spaces where I don't think folks will be surprised. One just started a full-time job as a labor organizer, as working for a union. One's working on a research project on how American youth soccer upholds empire. The other ones, wow. I mean, it's just love the stuff they're doing. So folks are not surprised. But the work thing is very interesting. One of my kids said to me, because I think this generation of 20-somethings like have a very different understanding of work and how much they're going to value what they do. And and they're like, we're just not going to do what you did. Like, we've seen how you are. Yep. Like, well, okay.
Right.
Or they take too many jobs and they're like, well, we learned from the best, Dad. I'm like, yes,
okay. Yep. I'm going to just receive that.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Like, got nothing. Yeah. It is. We have just a friend who just had a kid, and it's like, it never gets easier. It just gets different. It just gets different every time. I mean, we're at different things throughout this whole thing, but we're empty nesters now. So
that's remarkable.
Oh, it's lovely. I mean, we love our kids, and you've met them. We love hanging out with them, and they're lovely humans. But we're also like, sweet. Like, we're just doing stuff now, and now we just have our dogs that we have to worry about. What are you doing music-wise? So to give people a little bit of history? So Dave and I have known each other. We might be on almost 3 decades.
That's what I was thinking. Probably between 25 and 30 years. Yeah.
And we met you at Montreat Conference Center at one point, and you were coming through the Bay Area.
It might be more than 30 years. Wow. Sorry. Okay, go ahead. Sorry, Bruce.
I mean, you came. We might just be over because you were touring or something in California, and you crashed, and we were like, sure. And I think you crashed in our place for a couple nights while you were doing gigs out here, and so it's been a long time. And what I tell you every time we're in public is that you were present at the birth of each of our children. That was the I'm gonna get all weepy. Yeah. That was the CD that Robin chose. Oh my goodness,
that means so much to me.
The SS Bathtub played for at least 2. I don't remember how many of them, but
that's awesome.
And so so you have a very special place in our world, and so music is always. I know you've kind of got ebbs and flows, and you went away and studied and didn't gig as much and stuff. But what's the music thing happening now? What are you doing?
Yeah, well, I basically went a decade between records, but I put out my 13th one last summer, which is kind of wild to say, and Bruce, I don't want to brag, but it spent like 6 months, in the top 40 on the folk charts. And what that means is that it was heard by dozens of people. Dozens.
Like,
and a lot of
them
liked it. And a lot of them liked it, right? So, a year ago now in September, I had the #1 song on the folk charts.
So where does folk chart? Where do they play that? What are they like? The music
exactly.
industry. Like it can't just be radio anymore, right?
It's radio and streaming. It's radio and streaming.
Things.
So there are folks who do folk shows around the country and in Canada and in the Netherlands and Germany and wherever, and a lot of them send in their playlists, and if you rank well on their playlists, then you get on the charts. So it's just a radio chart, and it's lovely. I don't mean to disparage these awesome. Kind and wonderful people who are playing my record. That's really sweet. But I also don't want to make it a bigger deal than it really is. So at any rate, that was kind of fun. I don't know that I've ever had number one anything before, and that was pretty fun. Yeah. And the song was called September Me, so it was very topical for September and did well that month. And so now I've been writing a lot. I've written 40 songs in the last 40 months because you have a Patreon page.
Well, not anymore, but yes,
So one of the things I do is I promise people
that's right
a song a month on Patreon. Yeah. And that gives me the accountability to prioritize writing.
I remember. So I'm a patron. If you are not a Patreon person, get on over there and pledge and support David, but also anybody else. I was on Patreon, but I realized that most of my content is written. And so I moved over to Substack.
That makes sense,
and which makes total. Like I was trying to. Like I'm following you and like Heather Lynn and some other people, and I'm like, my content is not as compelling as these creative people. So all the people I support are like artists of other genres. But yeah, I saw that you were doing a song a month. I'm like, that seems like a lot.
It is a lot. And I mean, for me, it's a lot. David Wilcox writes 3 songs a week. It's ridiculous. Sometimes 3 songs a day. But me, I have never been a prolific writer until November of 2019 when I launched Patreon and started writing more often. And boy, that was fortuitous timing, 4 months before the pandemic. So anyway, that's been really beautiful. So I'm writing a lot. I've got 2 compilation albums coming out in the next couple months that I'm on. One of them I can't quite talk about yet. It's not dropped, but it's really exciting. I get to be on this extraordinary compilation with a lot of my heroes as songwriters. Awesome. There are 80 songs on this thing, and I want to talk about it. But anyway, the other one is I can talk about. It's called the Fine Tuned Music Project, and that's out of Western North Carolina, where they set up mentor pairs, basically with musicians in the mountains here, generally across genre, and asked folks to work together and create some art.
Oh.
And I worked with this young hammer dulcimer player who is actually the national hammer dulcimer champion. His name is Benjamin Barker. And Benjamin and I wrote a song together and recorded that, an instrumental song. And then we also, he played on a song that I had already written. And both of those songs are on this new album. And that's super exciting. It's coming out any minute. It's called Fine Tuned. And that's fun.
Yeah. Collaborations are so interesting. I think that, that whole, I don't know if it's even a genre, but just kind of what, like these different styles and people like doing things together. And I think it's, that's cool. I mean, that's one of the things my kids have definitely introduced me to even more. Like it's beyond just sampling and some other stuff, but just the way folks are doing things together now. It's amazing. It's pretty awesome.
I actually met a young DJ from New York on a plane recently and realized that he was editing audio on his laptop while we were on the plane. And so I didn't bother him until we were touching down. He took his headphones out. I said, "Hey, working on some music there, and we started chatting and I'm going to send him some of my stuff.
Oh yeah.
Some stems, in fact, so that he can create some club stuff from my music. I'm so stoked.
Top of the EDM chart.
Really fun. Yeah. Well, it's really fun to collaborate, especially across media or across genre. And actually the most exciting thing I think I've done in the last year, other than the book coming out, was this project I did with Hannah Garrity, who's a brilliant artist from Virginia who you know well. And Hannah and I created a video for my song Look Away that I feel really good about. I'm really proud of. The song is, I wrote it long before Jason Aldean became a headline, but it's basically my answer to that. I wanted to problematize here. I'll go all academic here for a second. I wanted to problematize the conflation of being Southern with supporting the Confederacy, right? Which is all throughout Southern culture. And it occurred to me at some point that the anthem of the Confederacy, Dixie, says in the chorus over and over and over again, they say the quiet part out loud. They say, look away, look away, look away. Which is exactly what we've been doing for hundreds of years, right? Like,
wow.
And so I wanted to name that in my own song and kind of answer that. But I also acknowledge that it's really important to tell my own story and not other people's story, right?
Sure.
So I don't want to speak for anybody.
Right.
So the song starts out, my grandfather's own grandfather walked home from the Civil War from Virginia to Columbia, SC. I don't know what made him join up. I don't know what he believed, but his legacy has passed right down to me. Way down south in the land of cotton, stories here are not forgotten, except when we'd prefer to look away. Rules were written to advantage, so the playing field is slanted, and that's how it is still working to this day. So the chorus says, look away, I can't look away from history anymore.
Oh.
So this is where that's going. And so I wrote the song quite intentionally in the Southern rock genre, right? So it's a Southern rock song saying things you don't hear in that genre. And then Hannah and I, in creating the video, took that even deeper and played with all these visual tropes that you see in Southern rock and country videos that we wanted to employ to create some questions, right? And and the entire video, there's almost never fewer than 3 things on the screen at the same time, and they're dissolving. One's moving forward as one's moving back. And so the whole thing is slightly disorienting, and there's a story behind the story the whole time, right? And we used images of all these really potent things in the video that come through really quickly and subtly, and you kind of have to make sense of it yourself, which is what good art ought to ask of you. So,
well, definitely, folks listening to this, the links in the show notes. So make sure you take right after we're done, I'm going to go watch it.
Yeah. And we actually, there was so much going on in it that we thought that for the people who want to take the deep dive, we wanted them to have that opportunity. So we created a web page that has the video, and then it has the lyric, and then it has, Hannah and I have a couple paragraphs of notes on it. And then there's a time-coded, annotated video, basically, where, at 17 seconds, you see this image. Here's what it means, right? Like, you can go through the whole video and read. So it is as deep as folks want to go, they can go there.
Awesome.
So that's at lookawayproject.com.
Great. Awesome. Well, definitely include it all.
Yeah. So yes, here's the collaboration.
Wow. We've already gone to 40 minutes, my friend.
Amazing.
I know. And it's only 2 of us. Normally we have another co-host on, and then it just gets crazy.
I adore your co-host. What a great
they really are. They really are fun, and they're cheap, which is the best part about them.
That's good. I like that.
They work for coffee. It's great.
Awesome.
Tell people how to find you. I will definitely include all the links in there, but what's the best way to get in touch with you and find your stuff?
I mean, the center of the spoke, or the center of the wheel, I guess, what do you call that? The hub? Yes, is my website, davidlamotte.com. And the only trick there is spelling Lamotte, which does not have an N in it, strangely. Lots of folks think that it should. Lots of folks say Lamont.
Lamont. Oh, yeah, I always get tricked up with, is there an E or not?
Yeah, there's an E, right? It's Lamotte. It's French, and we love silent letters, us French folk, So, yeah. And random capitals in the middle of the word and stuff like that. So
that's right. And so, get over to the website and get onto Patreon, definitely for sure. And then there's a bunch of other links that we'll include in the show notes. It is always lovely to have you on, David. I have deeply appreciated our friendship and what you do in the world. You are, genuinely who you are, and it's kind of one of those folks. I think when people actually meet you, they're like, oh yeah, this is who I would expect. And that's that's exactly what. Oh, you know what? I just remembered a David Lamotte story I need to tell.
Okay, lay it on me.
Do you remember 2008? You were in San Jose, where I am now, when I was elected moderator. Do you remember do you remember the story?
I remember it so clearly. Every bit, yes.
So for those of you that are not involved with the Presbyterian Church USA world, I was elected moderator, which is a big deal to Presbyterians.
Yes.
Highest elected office, this thing. And I think you might have been singing or something at breakfast.
I was doing a talk.
You were doing a talk? Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Yeah. And so we're standing in line, and I was just elected moderator. So I am the center of the world in this place. And this person comes rushing up, ready to shake my hand. And you were standing, and it wasn't for me. It was just the best. It was like,
that's not the story I thought you were going to tell.
Oh, is that awesome. It is that? No, I remember that. I remember that distinctly. Being like, great. I'm not the rock star. That's right. This guy is
fun.
It was. I
have had that experience from the other side where somebody asked me to take a picture, and I thought they wanted a picture with me, but they just wanted me to take the picture of them and somebody else. And
it's like, I don't know who you are. Can you just
sure, I could do that. Yeah. Yes,
I just remember. I was like, head big, just like, oh, okay, yes, let's just little perspective, Bruce. But I just remember like, hey, and I'm like, not for me. Okay.
Bruce, it's so good to see you, man. And I always want to shake your hand and give you a hug. So when I come rushing up, it'll be for you.
Okay.
And
deal.
And I really appreciate the hospitality and the light you're shining in the world.
All right. Thanks. Well, thank you all for joining David and I today. You'll hear all the credits at the end of the show. But again, really appreciate anybody who goes and subscribes to all the places you listen to your podcast, follow, share, all those things. And again, thanks for listening to BRC and Friends.
BRC and Friends was hosted and produced by Bruce Reyes-Chow. Co-hosts were Jorge Bautista, Mickey Scott Bay-Jones, Amy Kim Caramis-Parks, and Laura Monaco Heifetz. And the theme music was composed and recorded by Marissa Magdal Laurent. Please head over to Patreon and toss us a few bucks, and feel free to connect with any of us via the show notes. And lastly, please don't make me beg. Take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe to BRC and Friends wherever you listen to podcasts. Until the next episode, thanks for listening to BRC and Friends.